is a stereotype? We hear this word every day and in many different circumstances, but what is the actual meaning of a stereotype? Well, the dictionary definition goes as follows. A stereotype is a widely held but fixed and oversimplified image or idea of a particular type of person or thing. It's basically the idea that all members of a certain group share a single common trait. It was a term coined by Lippmann in 1922, who defined them as little pictures in our heads that help us interpret what we see. Stereotypes can either be perceived as positive or negative stereotype. Examples of positive stereotypes would be all Christians are good people or all Asians are smart. And examples of negative stereotypes would be all teenagers are rebels or white people can't dance. Most stereotypes today are negative and can dangerously lead to prejudice and discrimination by exaggerating group differences. Once a set of characteristics are used to describe a group of people, those characteristics are often attributed to all members of the group and thus affecting the behavior of those people. It is a sense of placing people into categories based upon their previous experiences. One way that stereotypes affect behavior is by assigning pre-assumptions of a person based on given characteristics, attitudes, or behaviors. The stereotypes society places on others are generally based on race and gender. Let's go to the thought bubble. Thanks, thought bubble. A study that aimed to demonstrate how gender stereotypes would influence one's perception of emotion is Hess, Adams, and Kleck's 2004 study. In this study, 23 women and 21 men, students at the University of Quebec in Montreal, were presented with black and white drawings of facial expressions of happiness, sadness, anger, and disgust on a computer screen. The relative intensity of emotional facial expressions were constructed using a Morph 2.5 software. These expressions were also combined with a female hairstyle or a male hairstyle. Participants saw each facial expression twice, once with a female hairstyle and once with a male hairstyle. Then subjects had to rate a series of facial expressions regarding the emotion expressed. They were asked to indicate for each drawing the intensity with which it expressed anger, contempt, disgust, fear, happiness, sadness, and surprise. As a result, anger and sadness were considered and rated with high intensity while presented in a female hairstyle, whereas happiness was rated as more intense with a male hairstyle.
So your task is to rate these series of facial expressions regarding which emotion they're expressing. You must indicate for each drawing the intensity with which it expresses the following emotions: anger, disgust, happiness, or sadness.
This is anger.
This one?
Yep. Anger, disgust, sadness, and happiness.
Happiness is this one?
Yep.
Okay. So the results of the study demonstrated that anger and sadness were rated as more intense while presented with a female hairstyle, while happiness was rated as more intense with a male hairstyle. Yeah, right. Good job.
Hess, Adams, and Kleck's 2004 study exemplifies the idea of how stereotypes may have an effect on behavior because although the scientists predicted that controlling for physical cues of dominance and affiliation would reduce gender stereotype effects, the study provided evidence of the complete opposite and demonstrated that the presumed gender stereotype effects for ratings of anger, disgust, happiness, and sadness are actually facial appearance effects. Controlling for facial appearance, in fact, reversed gender stereotypic effects for anger and happiness expressions. These findings suggested that although women are generally constrained to the gender stereotype of being more happy, whereas men are perceived as more angry, evidence demonstrates that women may actually be perceived as more angry and men as more happy, merely because of this expectation generally clouded by women's lower levels of perceived dominance and higher levels of affiliation. These automatic pre-assumptions of genders are influenced by our tendency to create gender stereotypes.